What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Take 3 podcast. As you can see on the screen, NFL Week 4 preview. We're going to gloss over Thursday night. Obviously, it's Thursday night when we're recording. No real point. I mean, obviously, we know what's up. Miami going into Cincinnati. Cincinnati hungry to get back to 500. Miami's 3-0. Some could say a fluke 3-0. They should be 2-1. But since it's so short notice, we're going to skip over that. When you look into Sunday, I mean, not a great slate. When you look at it, there's some good matchups. Obviously, Buffalo, Baltimore, that should probably be flexed to the late window, if I'm being honest, because New England, Green Bay should be bumped up, right? That's a 1 o'clock game. Nobody really cares. It's a 10-point spread. Denver and Las Vegas as well. I mean, obviously, it's a West Coast game that's going to get that. Arizona at Carolina is another suspect one, right? They're on the East Coast, but they're leaving at the 3 o'clock window. So, I mean, your prime matchups in the afternoon, Buffalo, Baltimore, and probably Jacksonville, Philadelphia, as far as competition-wise. And then you get to the evening, right? Kansas City and Tampa Bay. That should be a good one. And then, obviously, Monday night, Rams go to San Francisco. Obviously, the history of last year, how those games went. But, I mean, how are you feeling coming off looking at this slate of games going into this weekend, week 4?
Yeah, interesting week. Never a fan when the NFL puts like a massive block of games at 12 and then just gives us 3 in the afternoons slate. I do think that's poor planning, and all the good matchups are at noon. Not a great NFL weekend looking at it, but it's definitely some interesting matchups. I'll say this, looking at the spreads, almost all of them are within like 3 to 4 points. So that's pretty exciting. So we should get competitive football.
Yeah, a lot of weird shit. Surprised they didn't flex one of either Jacksonville, Philadelphia down or Buffalo, Baltimore down, right? That feels like that. But I mean, it is what it is. It's already too late. But let's jump in. First game we're going to talk about in that 1 o'clock window is obviously the Bills and the Ravens. When it's the biggest game, probably the biggest game in that window. Bills are 3-point favorites going on the road into Baltimore. Obviously, we know what happened last week, running out of time. Ken Dorsey throwing papers. They ran like 90 plays on offense. Josh Allen throws the ball 63 times. And then obviously we know what Lamar's been doing this season. Pretty damn good, right? There's one guy going into a prove it year. He looks like a genius, right? When guys take that risk, he looks pretty damn smart now because he's probably going to get more than the Ravens were offering before. But I mean, what do you look at when you're looking at the Bills and the Ravens? Obviously, the Bills have the number 2 offense, number 1 defense. Obviously, defensive pieces are slowly fading and getting hurt. Going up against the Ravens, I believe they're the 4th offense, but the 32nd ranked defense right now. So I mean, the Ravens could have trouble slowing down Josh Allen in that offense on Sunday.
Yeah, this is a pretty exciting matchup. This could potentially be the AFC Championship. I don't think anyone would be surprised if it turns out this way. I'm really excited to see this game. I'm kind of nervous. So I'm leaning Bills, just to put it out there right off the bat, but it does make me nervous just because of the 90 offensive snaps and that heat last week. But the good thing for the Bills is they're not the Miami Dolphins, right? It wasn't the defense that was on the field the whole time. I do feel that it's slightly easier for a team when it's the offense on the field the whole time. You can sub skill position players out much easier than defensive players, I feel like. And yes, the Bills lost last week. There's a lot of errors, but they still moved the ball up and down the field really easily. I think they'll be able to attack this Baltimore secondary very well. Josh Allen looked pretty dang upset after losing to the Dolphins last week. I think he's going to be locked in. I think we're going to get a big performance. I know they're probably like it. Hard game to recover from last week, but I think we get a big offensive performance from both teams because you already alluded to it. The Bills secondary is pretty banged up. So I expect Lamar Jackson and the Ravens to do their thing. And I think it's one of these games that turns into a shootout. I think it's an offensive battle. Both of these franchises usually have good defenses. Baltimore is not the case this year. And like I said already, Buffalo's is beat up. So I expect a high scoring affair. And when it comes to that, like you're talking about the 2 most dynamic young quarterbacks in the game, with maybe Mahomes and Herbert as another one. But like, I'm very excited for this matchup, and I'm going to lean Bills. Even though they don't have a great record in 1-score games, close games, this would be a perfect time for them to be, if it is competitive, to, be a little clutch and show what they got in competitive games.
Yeah, I'm leaning Buffalo as well. Josh Allen coming off a loss like that last week, it's just like, I got to roll with the Bills, figure they're going to get it right? The secondary is dropping like flies, but I mean, the key matchup of the day, right? It's going to come down to Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson going head to head. And I got to give the nod to Josh Allen when I'm picking a game and when I'm evaluating a game, even though that's no knock on Lamar. I like what he's been doing this year, but I just got to give that edge. If it turns into a shootout where both quarterbacks got to do something, I think Josh Allen will be there to expose the 32nd ranked defense in the league. But I'm also interested to see how the Ravens come out and attack, right? As we know, Buffalo secondary dropping, get Rashad Bateman out there, get Devin Duvernay out there. They've shown, right? They traded Marquise Brown this offseason. They don't really miss him, right? Got him out of there. They're lethal. And I'm also interested to see if the Buffalo Bills can contain Lamar. He's been running a little bit more the past couple of weeks after not running much week one. He's had success there. So, I mean, that's going to be trouble for the Bills linebackers, right? When you got a guy as fast as Lamar that can throw the ball, run the ball, it's something to watch on that side of the ball if you're Buffalo and Sean McDermott. But I'm leaning Bills as well. They're pissed off coming off that game. You saw Ken Dorsey throw on the papers. You saw Josh Allen slamming the helmet. He's going to want to come out against a team, as you alluded to. It could be the AFC title game preview. Another good football team. They're going to be dialed in, and I think they get this one back. But it does kind of scare me, right? Because you see the Bills guys dropping like flies, but I'm trusting 17 in Buffalo to get the job done if it's close.
I'm interested to see if Baltimore can get their running backs going, J.K. Dobbins and them, and because there's been a lot of Lamar Jackson on the ground, obviously, but then he's been great through the air. I'm curious to see if they try and get their running backs going a little bit against Buffalo. Definitely a tough opponent to get them going, but I'm curious if they try to game plan for them a little bit more.
Yep, for sure. And then, yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, as well as covering Mark Andrews, right? That could be an issue as well. When you have a linebacker, you got to have somebody spy Lamar, but then you also have another linebacker that's able to cover a guy like Mark Andrews. So the Ravens do have equally as many matchups that they can expose on the defensive side of Buffalo as Buffalo can expose on Baltimore's side. But it should be a good one. Like I said, it could be game of the day when the day ends on Sunday. But let's keep moving on to another game. It's weird. I mean, as we said, not many great ones. So we feel like homers. I kind of feel like a homer putting this game up, as we're both Eagles fans, but you know what I say? Fuck it. It's one of the better games in that noon window, that 1 o'clock window, if you're on the East. Doug Pederson returns to the link for the first time as a visitor since winning the Super Bowl with us. And obviously Trevor Lawrence, right? They're 2-1 coming in, facing 3-0 Eagles. Obviously all the hype's on Jalen Hurts. We hear MVP talk. We hear Super Bowl talk for the Eagles. It's all fun, but we're 3 ball games in. When I'm looking at it, I just want to see the same stuff, right? The defense still plays out. I still want to see Jalen Hurts make those progressions. And then if you're on the Jag side, I mean, you want to see Trevor Lawrence continue to build on what he was doing last week. He's been feasting. He feasted on the Chargers last week, had fun. Doug Pederson has that program completely rebounded after Urban Meyer tore it apart the year before. So, I mean, the Jags look like a legit team. The line's 6.5. That kind of scares me. I was scared last week that when we were 6.5 in a division game. So, I mean, what do you see here when the Jags coming back? Everybody's calling it a Doug revenge game. Like, I don't really think Doug is spiteful of Philly, right? I think he realized that, like, the time came, what happened. I don't think it's a real revenge game. Would he love to beat the Eagles? Obviously he would, but I don't think there's like revenge on his mind, like a Ben Simmons coming back to Philly with that type of energy.
No, I think Doug just wants to go in there and get a win for his young quarterback in the Jags. I don't think it's necessarily revenge on Philly, but I am very excited for this game. I think this game can tell us a lot about both teams. So the Eagles have blown the doors off the opponents. Week 1, Detroit scored quite a few points, and they kind of scored some garbage time points, and the score looked closer than it was. And then the thing with the Eagles, the defense has been so impressive, but they haven't really done much in the second half offensively. I wouldn't put any like worry or stock into that, considering they blew out both opponents in the first half. But I'm very curious to see if we can get a full 60 minutes of Eagles football, right, where they have to score, because I think that this Jags team is capable of going into the link and winning. They blew out the Chargers last week. They blew out the Colts week 2, and it's starting to feel like week 1 against the Commanders was a bit of an outlier, as the Commanders haven't looked great the last few weeks. They're sitting at 1-2. So definitely feels like the Jags could be 3-0, 2-1 heading in. And like, they've looked very good. They've been very, very good. They dominated the last 2 weeks. Doug knows the Eagles well. Obviously, it's very different from when he was there, but I'm very interested to see a competitive game, because I think we can learn a lot about both of these teams. I want to see, not necessarily see the Eagles be competitive the full 60 minutes. I would love another blowout, but I think it would show a lot for the team if the Jags go in there ready to play and the Eagles are in a close game in the fourth quarter. 2 young teams, 2 young quarterbacks. I think we have a lot to learn about both of these teams.
Yep, I like where it's at. Eagles side, I mean, I'm looking at just Jalen Hurts continue to progress as a passer, still make those same passes he's been making through the first 3 weeks, right? He's been looking very sharp. Looks like the work's been put in the offseason, but at the same time with that offense, I want to see a second half out of them. I want to see don't come out in 24 points and then the rhythm. They come out of the break in the second half and the rhythm's not there. Obviously, the defense steps up, but I mean, when you face these better teams, it's not going to work like that. You got to play 60 minutes of football, like you alluded to. And then defensive side, I mean, I want to see if we can slow down James Robinson. He's been running the ball well coming off the Achilles. We had a tough time stopping DeAndre Swift week 1. Week 2, we stifled Dalvin Cook pretty badly. And then, so I want to see us slow down James Robinson, play 60 minutes of football. And then the Jag side, this is the first time. I mean, this is the first time this year where you'll get to see them face a legit defense, right? The Chargers defense kind of beat up Joey Bosa out, a lot of injuries on that side. So, I mean, it's Trevor Lawrence and Doug Pederson up against a legit unit that we watched get 9 sacks last week. The secondary, Darius Slay's back there, James Bradbury, Avonte Maddox. They've been playing stout all year. So it's really, we'll get to see what Trevor Lawrence is made of, right? This is a benchmark game for the Jags and Trevor Lawrence and Doug Pederson in that program as a whole. So, I mean, that's what I'm looking for on the Jag side is Trevor Lawrence continuing his development and how will he look against a real playoff team, I'll say, right? The Eagles have kind of positioned themselves out the gates as one of the NFC's best teams. But 6.5 does scare me. It feels like a lot of points, with Doug Pederson, good coach, good quarterback combo, and they have a run game. It just seems like a little bit too much. I don't know.
Yeah, the full touchdown scared me last week as well. It scares me this week. I'm glad we don't actually pick Eagles games. I'm definitely not going to bet on this game at all. But yeah, 2 young quarterbacks. I hope they have. Honestly hope they both have good performances. I would love to see a competitive game here because I at this point, I feel like the Jags are a playoff team considering how poor their division is. So I think this is definitely a potential 2 playoff teams matching up, 2 young guys. We're going to learn a lot about these teams after this week. And I'm really just hoping for a competitive game.
Yeah, I want to see a team push our Eagles a little bit. Make us fight for a ball game, right? Show us something. Make Jalen Hurts dig deep. Make Nick Sirianni dig deep into the bag of plays.
Yeah, because believe it or not, it might sound crazy because we're only a month into the season, but when you kind of look at the Eagles schedule the rest of the way, there's not a ton of tough opponents. So I think it would serve them really well if this was a competitive ball game.
Yep, I like it. Move on. Sunday Night Football, Chiefs at the Bucs. Obviously, hurricane situation in Florida, pretty bad stuff. But the game I heard is taking place in Tampa. They did not move it to Minneapolis. That was the contingency plan. Obviously, you see Bucs won basically a pick 'em. It's practically a pick 'em this season. Both teams are coming off losses last week. 2017 loss for the Chiefs to the Colts, and then obviously the Bucs ugly loss to the Packers where they just the delay a game. They never really got going offensively. That's kind of been the story of the Bucs season, to be honest. 27th offense, 4th defense. The defense looks elite. They're flying around. They're going to have to rely on that unit. I mean, I don't think the weapons, they'll have Mike Evans back, but outside of that, I mean, they're not going to have a ton of weapons. O-line's kind of been concerning too early in the season. And then when you look at the Chiefs, man, fluke loss last week, I'd say they got the 7th ranked offense, 10th ranked defense. When I looked at Chiefs, I mean, you're getting Chiefs and a point in this. It feels like a Mahomes game, right? It's a Mahomes game to kind of go back to Tampa, get back at Tom Brady for that Super Bowl loss and kind of get their thing going again off the fluke loss. But I mean, it's always tough, right? Tom Brady, he's the GOAT for a reason. And it's not going to be an easy game going down there to Tampa Bay. So, I mean, what are you looking at here? Can the can the Bucs defense carry that offense for another week against an elite quarterback and elite head coach combo?
I will say this: the Bucs are certainly capable. Home field advantage. That defense is a Super Bowl caliber defense. Tom Brady and the Bucs will get Mike Evans back this week. So a little bit of receiving help. It's just hard for me to really roll with the Bucs in this game because of how bad their offense is struggling. I like to lean towards Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Obviously, they had a ton of special teams issues last week against the Colts that led to a loss. And they clearly missed Bucker. That's a big loss, actually. But I mean, I just feel good about picking Andy Reid and Mahomes as dogs on the road. It's just I have not seen enough from this Tampa Bay offense this year yet. Their defense is more than capable of slowing down the Chiefs. It's a tough task. but they're capable of doing it. I'm putting more faith in this Chiefs offense than I am this Bucs offense. I think the Chiefs defense is more than good enough to slow down this Bucs offense that has been struggling. I think it'll come down to a one possession game in the fourth. And I'm going to roll with Mahomes. Could Brady with Evans back make a couple big plays with Evans, Fournette, and just do just enough to squeak by? Definitely. But when the spread's basically a pick 'em, I'm going to roll with Patrick Mahomes. Anytime Patrick Mahomes gets points, it's hard not to take it.
Facts. That's a big question for the Chiefs. Who the hell's kicking for them this week? We don't know. Obviously, Amendola got waived. I was vouching for Justin Reed to keep kicking.
Yes.
They seem to not like that. I don't know why. As I said, the guy's a boot better than probably most of the kickers. But yeah, I mean, I'm rolling with the Chiefs as well. I just haven't seen, as you said, I haven't seen anything out of Tampa Bay's offense explosive wise. But then when you look at that defense, it's like, dude, they could just turn it into the Super Bowl from 2 years ago, where like the defense absolutely attacks Mahomes. They don't get beat over the top. Obviously, no Tyreek there. They still have McCole Hardman, but he's kind of been a non-factor. And it's like, don't get beat deep. Don't get beat deep. Let Travis Kelce catch the underneath pass, and they just get after Mahomes. Obviously, they're facing a better O-line this time around. That O-line in the Super Bowl was absolutely decimated on the Kansas City side. But yeah, I mean, that's the tale of two things. But I do think it'll be close. I got to roll with the Chiefs just because I think they have more, and they got the quarterback that can actually get outside the pocket and make plays happen when the plays get ugly. Right? Tom's not going to go run. He did run last week. That was weird. He broke the knee brace running, so I don't think he's going to be doing that again. But I just don't. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen enough out of Tampa Bay's offense. I think Tampa Bay mid-season to late season, when they get all their guys back, when they get Chris Godwin back, they'll be back to humming. But these early season games with just Mike Evans out there, I can't trust Tampa Bay. But I wouldn't be surprised if the defense somehow went crazy. But I'm not banking on it. I'm gonna roll with Patty and the point for sure. I like Mahomes to get his revenge from that Super Bowl loss on Tom this year.
Yeah, and you pretty much nailed it. It really is as simple as the Bucs just need to get healthy offensively, and you got to assume they're going to click because number 12's throwing the rock.
Mm-hmm. It's like a flip, right? Last year the defense is all beat up. They had everything at offense. Going ape shit, he has an MVP year, and then this year it's flip flops. I mean, I guess probably if you ask Tom, dude, he'd probably be content with this out of the gates, right? As long as his defense is flying around, they're a top ranked unit. He knows he'll have extra opportunities to get his offense back out on the field. But I don't know how many times you want to put Patty on the field if your O is not rolling. But
yeah, I mean, sorry, very last comment. They almost beat the Packers last week too with that anemic offense. So
yeah. So I'm saying you can't ever count number 12 out when he's on the field. But let's move on. Monday Night Football, Rams at the 49ers. Obviously, we know what the 49ers did last week. They did some real bullshit, -1.5 favorites, and they pulled some absolute bullshit, stepping out of the end zone, as we already covered in the recap of last week. It's probably the best thing that happened on the play because he threw the ball to Bradley Chubb. Then we got the Rams. The Rams are 2-1, but I mean, they haven't looked amazing. They've kind of been sloppy on their end. And obviously, dating back to last year, Sean McVay's had his weird issues facing Kyle Shanahan. So, I mean, what do you see when you're looking at Monday Night Football? Are you excited for this matchup? Is it something? I mean, obviously, the Matt Stafford elbow issue is going to be a weekly thing, I think, until he kind of shows that, that elbow is good, and it's probably not going to be good the rest of the year. So what are you looking at? Can Jimmy G get things back on track after that miserable performance last week?
Yeah, so Jimmy G did not look good last week. If I'm going to play devil's advocate at all, he hasn't had a lot of snaps in the offseason. There's a lot of moving parts. It was pretty surprising that here he was starting Sunday Night Football week 2, right? Or week 3, excuse me. But I'm rolling Niners here. I think it's going to be a very close competitive game. Rams-Niners seem to always be tough games. Kyle Shanahan gets the better of Sean McVay most of the time, obviously not when it mattered most last year in the championship game. But, I mean, it's just I haven't seen enough from the Rams to really pick them with confidence. I like the Niners at home. It's only 2 points is basically a pick 'em. I know I did that last Sunday against the Broncos. It didn't turn out well. I'm expecting a slightly better result. The Rams haven't looked great either. They let the Falcons come back on them pretty hard, and they just haven't looked fantastic at all. It took a Jalen Ramsey interception to seal the Falcons away, and the Falcons are one of the worst teams. And I mean, we can make fun of Denver as much as we want. They do have a very good roster on paper. And I just think the Niners do enough here, right? It's just enough with George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Jeff Wilson. I'm not expecting a dominant performance or anything crazy, maybe a Matthew Stafford interception, but I'm picking the Niners to simply squeak by to win by a field goal.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if you're rolling Niners, you're basically saying Jimmy G's going to bounce back. Obviously, he got into this position, didn't think he was really going to play much ball this year, right? He just thought he was a good security blanket for Trey Lance, and then Trey Lance breaks his ankle, and bang, he's in. So he had the shoulder surgery, obviously, in the offseason. He didn't have much work this offseason. So, I mean, that's the way to look at last week, right? Last week was kind of a tune-up. He was shaking the rust off, gets another full week of game planning against a team that he's been fairly well outside of an NFC title game last year. He's had success against the Rams and Sean McVay, as I mentioned, Kyle Shanahan as well. So, I mean, that's really what you're banking on. I'm going with the Rams, though. Obviously, the Rams got to find a way to get the run game going. They're averaging 3.4 yards per carry, which is the third lowest in the league right now. Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, they got to find a way to get the run game going and not be so reliant on the Cooper Kupp, right? Cooper Kupp's a machine. He's a machine, but the Sean McVay motion offense with the zone run, if they can get that going, it becomes more deadly. And then when I look at the 49ers offensive line, Trent Williams is probably out. The interior of the line is brand new. They're going to have issues stopping Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, those guys getting after Jimmy G. So, I mean, that's the only reason I'm rolling with the Rams. I don't feel confident taking the Rams at all. These Rams 49ers games, they're always like fluky and weird. They're very hard to predict, right? Almost impossible, but I'm going to roll with the Rams to get this one as 1.5 point dogs. I think that Aaron Donald will be able to come out. Hopefully they can get Allen Robinson going. He's kind of not really meshed well with Matthew Stafford out of the gate, kind of like we thought, right? We said he's going to get with Matt Stafford. Boom, it's going to be automatic, but it hasn't really popped like that. And it's been a lot more Cooper Kupp. We saw him get a rushing touchdown last week. It's kind of been all Cooper Kupp on the offensive side for the Rams. But I mean, the guy's that damn good. He's always open. So he's a handful for anybody. But yeah, I'm rolling Rams just because of the O-line and Jimmy G. I can't do it with the Niners again, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners win. I mean, it's simple as that. Rams 49ers games, impossible. They're almost impossible to pick. Like they're always going to be this to pick them line, and then something weird's going to happen. And that's how it rolls at the end of the night.
Yeah, you nailed it. I'm glad you said you weren't confident because I'm not confident with the Niners pick either. I think they just squeak by. And the Trent Williams injury does legitimately worry me a lot because he is a very important piece of that offense.
Yep, all pro left tackle covering that Jimmy G blind side, but we'll see how it goes. Let's move on to the week 4 spread picks. Obviously, we did pick tonight's game. Both went Miami, although we're not talking about it. Any games that you consider kind of lockish on here? Any games that you really don't like?
Lockish. I like the Vikings -3. It's a London game against the Saints. As of Thursday today, Jameis Winston and Michael Thomas have still not practiced. The Vikings squeaked out last week against the Lions. I think they're slowly getting better and better. I think the Vikings are a playoff team this year. So Vikings only having to win by 3. Technically, it's a road game, but I mean, it's in London, so it's not a real home game for the Saints. I like the Vikings -3 quite a bit.
Yeah, I'd say I'm with you. I'm with you on that one for sure. I like that one. Obviously, the Jameis back fractures, ankle injuries. Yeah. He's all beat up, and then they're flying him across the pond to London, England. It's like, yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. It's hard not to take that one. And then I like Browns at -1. I don't know, it's the Atlanta Falcons. Like, what faith do I have in Marcus Mariota? Obviously, Myles Garrett, I don't know if he'll go. Obviously, he had the car crash over this week, swerving from a deer in his Ferrari and flipping over like 8 times. Thankfully, he's okay. But even so, it's like one of those things you said at week 1, like I feel like they could run Nick Chubb all day and then still end up beating the Falcons by a touchdown. I don't know. That game could be the ultimate trap though, right? When you see that, like I could be looking at this next week when we talk about this and be like, damn, I got scammed. But I like Browns at -1 against the Falcons. Any kind of closing thoughts? Any other games that you're interested to watch going into this weekend? As we said, the slate's kind of outside of the games we talked about, like the slate's kind of weak.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about a lot of them. I will say we both went Miami for this Thursday night game that's about to start, and we seem to be going against the grain. Everybody seems to be on Cincinnati, all the public money, and I get it, right? They're at home. They're desperate for another win. Miami's kind of escaped the last 2 weeks. They just played 90 plays defensively in that heat against the Bills. But I don't know. I feel like with everybody going Cincinnati, they only have to cover. They only have to lose by a field goal to cover. And they're 3-0, right? They've still been a good team. So I don't feel super confident, but I wanted to go contrarian and go against the grain. So I went Miami.
Facts, yeah. I just say fade the public is what we're looking at. All the public money is on the Bengals. And that literally kind of swayed my decision because I was sitting there earlier today saying that I'm going to go Bengals, I'm going to go Bengals, I'm going to go Bengals. And then when I see it jump up to 4, they can lose by a field goal and I'm good. And and all that money from the public is on the Bengals. It's hard not to take Miami, right? Even with that, they have all that speed too, right? Tua is going to play. They got all that speed. So I like where they're I like them to at least cover, right? They can lose by a field goal, as you said, and I'm fine. 17-14 game, 21-18 game. Like, right. It's going to be a close ball game.
Plus Tyreek Hill calling out Eli Apple, a little bit of drama. Always here for that.
Facts. But he's going to get, Eli Apple garbage, probably get torched. And I don't know. One more thing. Over under Justin Fields throws 10.5.
Oh my God. You know, it's real depressing when you look at the Bears passing numbers and the receiving core as a whole. It's like less than 300 yards. Individual receivers have more than that. I went Giants -2.5, Ryan Dable. So I'm going to go ahead and just say under.
I like it. Yeah. Honestly, it might be under 2.5 throws. That offense is just anemic. Feel bad for him. But that's going to be a wrap for this one. Thank you all for listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, drop a comment in the comments below if you have any feedback for us, how we can improve this thing or get better, or add us on Twitter as well. As always, the Spotify link for this will be in the description as well. And we'll be back early next week to kind of break down week 4, where we went wrong, where we went right, and unpack these games.